Good morning. Hello. Hello, everyone. It's great to see such a big crowd today. Welcome. My name is Stephanie DiPetrillo, and I am delighted to welcome you to the TOD in your downtown forum, Affordable Housing plus TOD, Obligations and Opportunities. For those of you who do not know, I lead the NJTOD project here at the Rutgers Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy as part of my work for the Voorhees Transportation Center. NJTOD is a resource. It is mostly online, but obviously not exclusively, that explores transit-friendly planning and the opportunities for development and redevelopment in transit-friendly places. And, to create transit-friendly places and near New Jersey's transit facilities. We do this by sharing best practices and highlighting local problem-solving experiences. This work is made possible through an ongoing partnership between Rutgers VTC and New Jersey Transit's Transit-Friendly Planning Program, a collaboration that this year celebrates 20 years of our partnership. We are also pleased to continue our partnership with Downtown New Jersey for putting together this TOD in your town downtown forum series. I want to thank all of our panelists. I especially want to extend my thanks to Jonathan Sternitsky, which I'm probably saying incorrectly, who is going to provide us with an update on the affordable housing landscape in New Jersey, and to thank our moderator, Leanne Von Hagen, who is VTC's new executive director. And I want to express my appreciation for the support of my colleagues at New Jersey Transit and Downtown New Jersey. And since I see a few students in the audience, I want to make a quick note that we will be soon hiring a student research assistant for the NJTOD project, so keep an eye out for the advertisement. And I will put one more plug. New Jersey Transit is also hiring 2 interns this summer, so their ad is out as well. So you might want to go and look for that. So with that, I am pleased to turn over the lectern to Executive Director Natalie Panero from downtown New Jersey. Come on up, Natalie. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I didn't show my slide. Oh, well.
Oh, should I just advance past these? All right.
Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. It's early. At least it's early for me, y'all. So I want to take a quick moment to thank all of you for giving of your time to be here today. Again, my name is Natalie Panero. I'm the Executive Director of Downtown New Jersey. We are a statewide advocacy organization that's focused on supporting downtowns and commercial corridors. We do that primarily through education, advocacy, and recognition. So I really want to take some time to talk about how special it is, this partnership that we have that's enabled all of you to come together today. So I want to thank all of our partners this morning, NJ Transit, NJTOD, Transit Friendly Planning, the Blaustein School, for coming together to really put such excellent programming together for our members, for all of you, and we really look forward to continuing the partnership. We're really excited for our panelists today. Again, let's give them a round of applause. Our subject matter is something that is so relevant, right, to downtowns and commercial corridors, and it's a hot button issue. And so I'm so excited that so many of you took interest in it today. I do want to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming programs, right? We're going to be doing a Let's Talk Transportation together with our friends, sponsored by Courtney, NJTPA. Not Courtney, but Courtney and NJTPA. Courtney, brought this program to us, and we're excited to continue the partnership. And then we're going to be doing a Trends in Restaurant and Hospitality in April. So please come out Follow us. You can visit us at downtownnj.com. We're on Facebook at Downtown New Jersey. We're on Instagram at Downtown New Jersey. We're also on LinkedIn. And if you want to become a member so that you can take advantage of some of our members-only programming and special incentives, you can visit us at downtownnj.com, or you can scan this nifty QR code that'll take you directly to our membership page. So please continue to follow us, continue to join us for our programming, and we're excited to keep the ball rolling. So now I want to introduce Jonathan Cerneski to kick off our program. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to congratulate Natalie on still escaping the Governor's Housing Conference Planning Committee. Anyway, if we're doing pitches too, pitches for hiring, I do want to note if anyone, or if you or anyone you know are set to graduate in the spring, we are actually hiring a couple full-time roles for individuals who would rotate through various divisions in the agency. Get some experience and then move into full-time positions like programmatic or whatnot. In the second year, the idea being we're looking for smart people and we're willing to train them. So, my team is also hiring a data analyst. So, also if you have anyone graduating from a master's program. But anyway, I figured if we're pitching jobs, I might as well take my opportunity as well. All right, so thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm really honored to be asked, which seems to be kind of a reoccurring thing. But I want to make very clear before I start that, in my role at the agency, the agency does not really have a significant interaction with the A4 process. So if you're mad about it, you don't like it, talk to your legislator. That's not me. But I am. We are required as part of the statute to update one of the regulations specifically that relates to the affordability controls and the affordability controls and some of the occupancy standards, et cetera. So we've done that. That came out in December. We're going through a full APA process to update those in a permanent manner during this year. But anyway, just that's kind of our interaction with it. However, I still have to deal with a lot of these, things anyway, so I'm happy to be of assistance and kind of walk you through a couple of the facets here. So we're going to talk in this quick overview a little bit about why the Mount Laurel Doctrine exists as from a practical standpoint rather than a legal one, how the past economic and growth trends have led us to this point, and then where we stand currently in that fourth round process. So then obviously it'll move to the panelists. But before you get into that, I do want to note that what you're going to hear, especially when we get to where we are in the process, we are right about to enter that point in which planning is key. So, to the extent that towns are going to have obligations and they're going to be trying to meet those obligations, this is a really good opportunity to look at what you want your town to be. If you want to build a center, if you want a center node, if you want to build a kind of solidify a downtown, if you want to really increase utilization of your transit, this is really a good opportunity, and it's kind of going to be one of the best opportunities you have to do this for about 10 years until the fifth round starts. So you can make you can kind of push this for the municipality to be what you want it to be for both, for your kids and grandkids to inherit. So, first things first. Oh well, I didn't even realize where we are. Okay, so these are just some kind of basic overview stats. This is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. They determine these based on the number of individuals who are what are called rent burdened. For those of you who don't know, rent burden is when you pay 30% or more of your household income on rent. Housing cost burden would be if you include homeowners in here as well. But the idea being, if you're paying more than 30%, which many people are, you're going to be dealing with it impacts your ability to pay for food, medical, and any kind of other emergent necessities. So this is the standard number, and when you're over that number, it means that you're rent burdened, and it's actually a little bit of a suppression on the economy. But I want to highlight this in particular because it kind of shows where we're at in terms of the overall need. So most times when you hear policymakers talk, they're going to reference the 214 number. They're going to say we have a 200,000 unit deficit. That's just what we would consider unaffordable. Now, that said, I want to highlight this in particular because these people, the people who live in the units who are facing these rent burden are low-income individuals. They're the ones that are facing the acute pressures from the market shortages the most. Because when you have somebody who, if we don't have enough home ownership units, those people are going to be living in market rate rents. The market rate rent individuals are going to be looking for the other thing. And when you have choice, you have individuals who are able to afford, are able to pay a little bit more. And it winds up putting that pressure and pushing out individuals or pushing down on the economically on the individuals who can't afford that. Now, I do want to note, because New Jersey, as I say in every one of my speeches, is the best state in the union. We have a lot of people who want to live here, right? Like that is both, it's a blessing and a curse. Our rate of growth was the highest in our region. That said, we also have the highest rate of increase of housing units. So we are building more than most of our neighbors. But that said, we still gained 500,000 people in the last decade. Now, this is an interesting one. This is a little old. And this goes to my point about when you're dealing with a lack of when people aren't able to afford, to move out of rental units into home ownership units, they're going to stay in those rental units, which is increasing that downward pressure. So in every single county, you'll see the median household income is not enough to afford the median homeowner price. And, given the way housing prices have increased over the last few years, that has not gotten better. Now, this one is, I think, among the more important slides I'm actually going to show you today, because while it essentially is showing you the age of the housing units, right? This is showing you how the median age or the age of New Jersey's housing stock. However, it tells, I think, a more interesting story because if you look, obviously, pre-1940 is a long time, but so it's not like we just built in 1940 that many units. But interestingly enough, right? So you look, the post-war years, we see this big boom of housing construction. That's related, obviously, to the post-war boom, the Highway Expansion Acts, and all of a sudden. But as you see, over the next few decades, it starts to decline each decade. Each decade, it gets a little less. On average, it's about a 9.7% reduction per decade. Unfortunately, then we hit the Great Recession. It plummets. And so that's why I look at the age of the housing stock, but it's, I think, telling a more interesting story about when building basically stopped. And, we had a little bit of a, this is 2010 to 2013 and post 13. So this is not a full decade, but the point is, in the second half of the decade, we did see a little bit of a resurgence, and I think a lot of that is attributable to the third round of the Mount Laurel Doctrine being enforced by the courts. But that said, if we had continued at the same trend line, we would have expected to see probably about another 142,000 units be created in this decade. So we are missing about 142,000 units, which again goes to that point of it is creating this extreme downward pressure on the rental market and on those who have the least ability to afford. So that's why I really can't stress that one enough, and I think it's one of the more interesting ones. But, so we've established that we have a housing shortage, right? That said, we still have people moving here. And again, we want people to move here. I think that's a great thing. Our population, despite what the United Van survey says, people want to live here. And we saw 500,000, an increase in our population of 500,000 people in that decade. And as I mentioned, we're still doing better than most of our neighbors in building construction. But we only added 250,000 units. So the rate of population increase is still, even with us doing better than all of our neighbors, is still only about half of the population increase. So from a practical standpoint, that's why the Mount Laurel Doctrine exists, right? If you face all these pressures, there's legal reasons about, the use of zoning as part of police powers, but the reality is when it comes down to it, it's just we have a severe housing shortage. I mean, every state does, but given that this is a high cost state to begin with, it is felt very acutely here. So now A4. So almost 1 year ago, almost just shy of a year ago, the legislature passed the bill and the governor signed it into law. It's termed A4. That bill effectively eliminated, it abolished COA, and then it did a couple other things. It defined what the Mount Laurel process was going to be for the future rounds, deadlines, roles for the courts, state municipalities. It updated the methodology for how these are calculated. So even though and I want to highlight that one in particular because even though the National Low Income Housing Coalition is calculating it one way, they're saying we have a shortage of 215,000 because of the way the statute requires it be calculated here. They're showing that we have a shortage of, I think it's like 80,000. It's 65,000 for present need and like 80,000 for prospective need, 85,000 for prospective need. So it's about, funny enough, you add those together, you get about 150,000, which goes to the point of those are the missing units that should have been built had the Great Recession not occurred. So it's slightly different, and then it updates the required updates to affordability controls and other regulations that had been frozen in place for 20 years when COA went moribund. So this is what the timeline is supposed to look like, right? As you can see, as far as I'm aware, it is about February 7th. So we are right there. So we are right after the deadline for municipalities to adopt their needs. So that just meant that they have to basically accept or decline or they basically have to just say, I'm either going to go through this new process that was created under the A4 doctrine or I'm not. And if they choose not to, they simply are going to have to wind up following the round 3 process, which is litigation. That revolves around immunity, but it effectively comes down to litigation. So a lot of them did, and I'm going to jump ahead for 1 second because it just came out, I think it was literally yesterday or 2 days ago, that someone did an analysis. So 431 municipalities did meet that deadline and passed obligations. So that's about 3/4 of municipalities did choose to participate in this process. Now, we're not going to make any comment about what that is, but some towns basically said, yes, we're going to take those numbers and we're going to adopt them. Some of them said, we think they were slightly off. We're going to reduce them by a little bit. Some of them said we are going to reduce it by 90%. So the likelihood is not all of those that passed their resolutions are going to be accepted, offhand. But if they are not challenged by the end of February, so 3 weeks from today, if they're not challenged, they're de facto accepted, and then the town will move into that planning process, which is when you guys are really going to kick in. If they are challenged, then they're going to spend the month of March going through the program to adjudicate that determination and decide what that final number should be and should formally be, and then they'll move into the planning process. So, as I mentioned at the very top of this, we are right about to hit that point in which planning becomes extremely key and becomes kind of the defining moment of how this process all goes forward.
Sorry, really quick question. Challenged by who?
Anybody. It's defined in the statute. It's defined as an interested party. So there are nonprofits that are likely already gearing up lawsuits, but residents of a town could challenge as well. It's not really clear. I don't think they define what an interested party is, but it could be challenged by interested parties. And I think actually DCA or the municipality or anyone could really challenge. So anyway, 3 weeks from today, those decisions will be made, and we're going to go from there. But I think that's it. And the one thing I really want to highlight too is the way Mount Laurel has changed everything up means that this is now a municipally driven, DCA guided, court enforced process is probably the best way to describe it. Municipalities are in the driver's seat. DCA is kind of setting up like what the road's supposed to look like, and the courts are going to hopefully keep you on that road. So that's kind of how you're going to go forward, and I wish you guys all the best of luck because it is going to be a very, very busy next few months. So to that end, I guess I'm going to be asked to call up the new executive director, Leanne Van Hagen.
Yep, thank you very much. Whose phone is up here?
Mine.
Okay. Mine now. Good morning, everybody. Here. You can make sure I'm on time. It's good to see everybody here today. This is really great. What a full room. And I think it really shows what a hot topic affordable housing is in this next month and through the year. Jonathan, thank you for your overview. Fantastic. We know there's some tight deadlines, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out in our home rule state. For those who don't know, I'm Leanne Von Hagen. I am the new, as of really this month, well, January. I guess I was thinking January is still, we're in 150 days of January. The new executive director of the Voorhees Transportation Center here at the Blaustein School of Planning and Public Policy. But I have been at VTC for about 20 years, which is wild since I'm only 30. So I'm really excited about the panels we have come today to talk. So each of them is going to give a brief overview of their topic. I'm just going to introduce everybody by name and then start with our first presenter. And then we're going to have a great opportunity for a lot of questions and answers, including anything that you might still be thinking about from Jonathan's slides from just a few minutes ago. Okay, so our presenters today, I'm going to introduce all four of them, and then we'll start with Chris. So first up, we have Chris Puglisi. Thank you. Who is the Director of Housing Development at Affordable Housing Alliance. Thank you, Chris. And Chris is a bit of a last-minute replacement, so we're really thankful for Chris for stepping up with a few days' notice. And then we'll have Kristen Mitchell, who's the Director of Transit-Oriented Development at New Jersey Transit. And then Larissa Lusani, from the Administrator of Housing Production at New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And Patrick Terborg, the Managing Member of TD Plus Partners. And then Stacy Berger, who is the President and CEO of Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being a last-minute replacement, but I do want to get my picture off the screen there. How's everybody doing out there, okay? You all excited to watch the Chiefs steal the Super Bowl on Sunday? No. That's good. I thought that would get a reaction. It's good. Oh, man. So, I appreciate the invite. Appreciate being a last-minute replacement. I appreciate NJTOD and Rutgers for really putting this together. It's actually a really unique panel. I've seen a lot of affordable housing panels, and I've been on some, but never kind of with the transit topic infused into them. So really appreciate that. But yeah, my name is Chris Puglisi. I'm the Director of Housing Development at the Affordable Housing Alliance. Really quick backgrounds. I worked for 7 years in government at the Long Branch Housing Authority. At that time, we redeveloped 4 public housing sites through its 7 low-income housing tax credit, 100% affordable sites. So we kind of increased the amount of housing stock in Long Branch, New Jersey over the years I was there. I then worked at Conifer Realty, which is one of the largest tax credit developers in the country. Contributed to the development of over 600 affordable apartments in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Then I took my current spot at the Affordable Housing Alliance, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Monmouth County, New Jersey, kind of focused in Monmouth and Ocean County, New Jersey, but we'll really go anywhere to fulfill our mission, which is up there. I won't bore you with reading it, but it's a very good mission. We are focused on housing-related services, and working with people. One thing that's really unique about our organization, I'm kind of in charge of the development department. We have a property management department, and we have a vast array of services. We have a homeless... What did I do?
You rooted for the Chiefs.
Oh. I think we're back.
Oh, you're good.
I don't know what happened there, but we're good. We have homeless stability services. We provide wraparound services for our residents, and we have all these services for other people of Monmouth, Ocean County, and some of the surrounding state. We provide utility assistance counseling, home ownership counseling, foreclosure assistance, reverse mortgage counseling, and all sorts of things I can't name off the top of my head, but you could find at housingall.org, our website. Just a couple of our development pieces I put together real quickly. We've done over 600 apartments in all of our units are in Monmouth County right now, although we are planning something in Ocean County. That building right there, very pertinent today, that's in Spring Lake, New Jersey. It's 4 affordable apartments, and it's adjacent to the train station in Spring Lake. These are just some things we have under construction. Larissa is going to talk in a bit. She's vital in the funding for both of these projects. One of them is 3 units, special needs building for formerly homeless individuals. One of them is 10 units for 55 and over seniors of low to moderate income. Those are under construction and should be ready to go in a couple of months, actually. And then other future plan development, we are going for final commitments in March to develop that 67-unit affordable tax credit building you see on the upper left there. That's in Millstone, New Jersey. And then we have other projects planned in Spring Lake, Robbinsville, Keensburg, and a whole bunch of other towns that we're talking to about things. Yeah, so that's myself and AHA, and looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Formal this is. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Mitchell. I'm the Director of Transit-Oriented Development in the Real Estate Division with New Jersey Transit. I only have one slide because that's what I thought I was asked to do, so I apologize. But, so I'm here with my colleagues in both real estate and in the planning division, and we work very, very closely together to try to bring projects from planning through fruition. And we are in the midst, in the real estate division, we work on projects that are on New Jersey Transit-owned land. And you'd think that we have tons of locations to do this on. We're actually a little more limited than most people think. People think we own a ton of land that's available for transit-oriented development, but we do also have to maintain our primary mission, which is running the trains, light rail, buses, et cetera. So one of the things I want to point out is some of the projects that we have going right now. We abide by state law, which requires 20% of units in development on state-owned land to be affordable housing, and we're doing that in Metro Park. There will be about 245 units altogether, translating into 47 affordable units. We're doing that in Hoboken, which is more residential units at 386 units, with 78 affordable. We will be doing that in Red Bank. The number of units is still being determined. And then in Dover, this was not on land owned by New Jersey Transit, but we had some control over it because we had an agreement with the local government and parking authority, so that when they wanted to develop, we had some control and we had a role in this project. And this is a 100% affordable housing project in Dover. And in these projects down here, it'll be a mix of units. Studios, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units will be affordable. We said we abide by state law, which is obviously a given, but we also, I just want to point out, we did put this in a recently published TOD policy statement just to reinforce not only do we follow state law, but we believe in it and we support it, and we think it's really important for people to be able to live affordably. So it's, I think Christopher just said, that this is a unique panel because it merges transit and housing together. And I can tell you, we think about it all the time in our unit, and I know transit-friendly planning does too. Not only do you want to have affordable housing, but you want it near places where people have access to grocery stores, pharmacies, work, education, all of the things that people need to get to on a daily basis. that's really where you want the affordable housing as much as possible. And so we think about it all the time. I can tell you we were at a conference in October called Impact, which is related to, it's all the transit focused stuff. And I feel like every panel I attended there had to do with affordable housing and equity. So your transit advocate people are very much in tune with your affordable housing experts. And so with that, I would just say, one of the things that I would look for if I were you in terms of opportunities is places where New Jersey Transit owns land. Like I said, there's not as much as people think, but we do own land in municipalities throughout the state. Look for those as opportunities. We're happy to talk to you. And one of the pieces of advice that I would have is also look for opportunities to shrink your parking requirements, because that's often what causes the price of a development project to go up, and not as necessary as many people think. You can reduce the parking requirements and save money and put that money toward housing. And I just to point out, in Hoboken, our 386 unit development doesn't have a single parking space. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Larissa's next. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm Larissa Luciani. I'm the administrator of housing production at the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. We are housed within the Division of Housing and Community Resources. We're responsible for administrating several pots of money for the construction of affordable housing, mostly focusing on small-scale missing middle housing. So for all the great slides Kristen just showed about, the true densities we should be seeing around transit, I focus on some smaller scale stuff that's also close to transit. And I think this is an important showcase to show how municipalities can use different types of densities to fulfill their obligations to integrate housing into neighborhoods without affecting, the context of your communities. And so I want to showcase some of the funding pots that we administer, including the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which, thanks to Stacey Berger's group, was recasted by Governor Murphy in 2020. The State Home Program, as well as the National Housing Trust Fund, which is a permanent supportive housing program that we run in conjunction with Capital. We also provide project-based Section 8 vouchers for those units. This is an 11-unit project that was just completed last year in Glen Rock, New Jersey. This is literally next to the train station in Glen Rock Borough Hall on the Bergen Line. These are 11 units, 100% affordable, low and moderate income units. They are 100% filled and have been since it was placed in service. So this was funded with our home program, as well as monies from the Glen Rock Borough's local trust fund and other private financing. We also, again, much smaller scale, but still within a quarter mile of a train station. This is a 2-unit development for permanent supportive housing that was financed through our National Housing Trust Fund. This serves populations that make less than 30% of the area's median income. So to Jonathan's point, the households that are struggling most in our state are those on fixed incomes, which are those with special needs and seniors. This is serving households with mental illness, and it also comes with wraparound services. Again, not only do we provide 0% capital for financing towards these projects, we also provide project-based Section 8 vouchers to assist with the operating of the project and also ensure affordability for the tenants. And then, Chris Folio couldn't be here today, but this is her project in downtown Haddonfield. This is right behind Borough Hall, a quarter mile within the Haddonfield Paco station that runs into Philadelphia. Go Birds. But this is a 20-unit development that's hopefully going to be coming online, hopefully before this summer. Again, great access to downtown, contextual within the historic nature of Haddonfield Borough if you've never been. Actually, it's 5 units shorter because George Washington walked around here somewhere. So there's a large ship overview that thwarted the additional 5 units. But this was funded through our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, again, low interest financing. It was also paired with local trust funds from the borough and private financing. Initially, County Home was in it, but that was moved for another project. But again, really great work, in conjunction with what, the agency's doing. They're focusing on projects 25 units or more, usually around 80 to 120 units. They have a variety of financing programs that can help fulfill affordable housing and transit-oriented development. I imagine many of the projects that Kristen just showed was also in partnership with programs that EDA is funding through Aspire. So there's definitely financing mechanisms and different approaches to providing affordable housing around transit. It's not just about building 25 units per acre. Skyscrapers, you can also do this contextually with infill, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, you get so caught up in each,
So what do I do here? I just,
the demo button.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Stephanie did the slide for me. I didn't do it. Apparently, I was supposed to have more than one slide. Larissa, thank you. I will be talking to you soon about money, like we all are, and that's why everybody clapped. It's really nice being here. Good morning to everyone. So TD Plus Partners, we're a real estate development firm, and over the last 6-7 years, we've actually developed about 400 units of housing, primarily affordable housing, up to 60% AMI. And we have a mixed income project that we did recently in East Orange that was really our first non-affordable housing, non-subsidized LIHTC deal. And I did that with J.G. Petrucci, and we did 172 units in East Orange, and it was definitely supported by a pilot, which really helped. And we had 70% market rate, 30% affordable. It was a property that we actually purchased from the Housing Authority, and the 30% set aside included, I believe, 21 of the units of the 51 were Section 8 or 30% AMI, and then everything was up to about 80 to 100% affordable. As a developer, my primary focus is really on building out mixed income housing, so more from affordable to workforce housing. And I'm a little distracted. I really want to recognize the presence of Tony Marchetta, who I see as a mentor sometimes, somebody that was there when I started in affordable housing, and one of the people that Dean and I really pushed and beat up on, and he was really kind, and he facilitated he was very kind to really listen to us and really address how we could change policy that resulted in the Irvington General Hospital site receiving a 9% tax credit when it really was not one of the top scorers. But that project was really necessary, and we ended up doing a 9% tax credit deal in Irvington, which really kickstarted redevelopment in Irvington, New Jersey. And we did 114 units of all affordable housing, high quality affordable housing. So thank you. It's good to see you. Thanks. So I'm really, really passionate about affordable housing and mixed income housing. And I try to not get upset with what I see as the mechanization and the process that people take in slowing down the production of affordable housing. I think Jonathan did a really great job of laying out that it isn't that we have 65,000 units or 85,000 units that is needed. It's more like 215,000 units. And we could probably argue that the need is probably more like 500,000 units if you think about how stressed people are once you get above even the 80% or 100% of AMI. And I think we spend a lot of time in this state, unfortunately, and its politics is necessary and government is necessary, and it's a complicated process. Really coming up with these different frameworks to address how we provide affordable housing. I personally believe that some of it maybe is trying to solve too many issues. So I think we're trying to solve an education issue with affordable housing, and that makes it more complicated. I believe we should try to build as much affordable housing as we can, as quickly as we can, in areas that where you have local government that's very interested in spearheading development. And we should really, really emphasize focusing on getting that done. I do believe we should also try to build affordable housing everywhere we can. So I'm not somebody that's saying we shouldn't build affordable housing in the suburbs, but I think it's definitely probably more cost efficient for the end user when affordable housing is built around transit or close to transit, which could be the train or it could be bus. Irvington was a bus rapid transit. And when Tony was HMFA, he accepted that was still a TOD, but we just had bus lines, right? And we were able to do that project. So the politics aside, I'm interested in seeing more affordable housing being built, regardless of where we're building it. And yes, we should address those other issues, and we should address issues of safety and job creation that makes neighborhood more livable, including the areas that may not be seen as desirable. So in the next couple of years, we're literally going to start development on about 600 to 700 units of affordable housing between East Orange, Plainfield, and Irvington. And those are all areas that do not have a mandate to provide affordable housing, but in many instances, they're opting in to provide up to 20% or more of affordable housing. And we're literally going to do 100% affordable housing to market rate housing. The other big focus to me is, this is what I'm really excited about. It's a little bit of a messy slide. My real big issue is moving towards being a zero carbon real estate developer. So we really want to embrace ensuring that we have things like metric panels, biophilic design, really addressing the environment around a development, reducing our reliance on fossil fuel, and also in doing so, building better environments for people who live in those areas. And I've always been a very agnostic developer, so in addition to doing affordable housing or housing, I've also built childcare centers, schools. I just want to rebuild communities, and I want to participate with people who want to do so. And so thank you for having me. I look forward to being on the panel. And my commitment, my passion in life is building housing and communities that are affordable to the largest range of incomes. Thank you.
I'm assuming we're sitting down after.
Yes.
I'm gonna bring my stuff. And where's the?
You just give it.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces and also nice to see folks I haven't met before. How many folks are students? And then not the housing development professionals, everybody else? Any municipal folks? Okay, great. I'm Stacy Berger. I'm the president and CEO at the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey. You maybe saw a version of this slide. Oh, wait, this is going much faster than it should. I'm not sure how to get it to, it's just going by itself, Stephanie. I don't know why it's going by itself either. Oh, okay. Let me see. Yep, there we go. All right. Still here. Okay. I'm going to hopefully make some magic happen or not happen. I'm Stacy Berger. I'm the president and CEO at the Housing and Community Development Network. I am also a graduate of, now it wants to do this. I don't know how to make it stop. It's not on a timer. Yikes. Okay. I mean, I didn't put it on.
Yeah.
I didn't intentionally put it on a timer because I don't know how to do that. And
There we go.
just-
This
Thank you.
should do it
Yay.
from current.
Thank you, Courtney. Courtney,
Tech
ladies and
support.
gentlemen.
Oh, I almost left my
And she almost left her coffee. It's definitely a Friday morning. So thank you all so much for being with us. Third time's going to be the charm. I'm still Stacy Berger. I'm the president and CEO of the Housing Community Development Network of New Jersey, a Blaustein graduate and a Rutgers undergraduate, and somebody who was unable, despite my best efforts, to get my children, either of them, to attend our fine flagship university here. So, I know we're trying. I'm like, go get your master's at Blaustein or somewhere. But for full disclosure, I am not a developer. I've actually never done a full development. I've never built anything that wasn't made out of Legos. Our main focus is really on policy and advocacy and creating the space and resources and opportunity for nonprofit developers like the Affordable Housing Alliance. Chris's colleague Randy Moore sits on our board along with 15 other nonprofit developers and 4 institutional partners. And we lead the state's efforts to make sure that everyone has an affordable, safe place to call home. We believe that housing is a human right and that everyone, regardless of where they're from or whether they're from here or they've come here, has the right to have a safe, affordable place to live every single day. And so, yeah, you can clap for that. That's a good thing. We are gearing up for a very large battle over that issue and whether people have the right to even be outside if they can't be somewhere else. We have seen a huge uptick in criminalization efforts. I'll get to that in a second. But I just want to give you a sense of who we are and why we do this work. We're community developers like the Affordable Housing Alliance, for-profit property developers, financial institutions and corporations. We have some folks here who work with us from the banking and lending side, philanthropic organizations, individual residents, those individual stakeholders that Jonathan mentioned have the right to object to a fair share allotment. Those are not our folks. We don't object unless we think it's not enough. And then anybody else who wants to be a member. So Jonathan talked a little bit about the need for housing in New Jersey. We have slightly similar but slightly different slides from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, of which I am also a proud board member. And so I will be glad to report back that the data that our data team is crunching is being used in multiple presentations in the same discussion. Just to give you a sense of how New Jersey stacks up against the rest of the country, we have some of the most expensive housing areas in the state. In the nation, rather. You need to work 2.5 full-time jobs at minimum wage in order to be able to rent a fair market apartment. We know that housing, how many people think that everybody who needs a Section 8 housing choice voucher gets one? If you need housing, you get a voucher, right? Right, no. Okay, so is it 75% of the people? Put your hand up if you think it's 75%. 50%? 30%? Okay, 25%. Of the country. Yeah, it's 25% of the country. So we have 75% of Americans who need support for their housing costs, and they can't get it from the federal government. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody that it's going to get much worse before it gets better. That may not be enough I've heard as much as a 50% cut to HUD, to the HUD budget. Yeah, HUD is not, Section 8 is not an entitlement program. It can, and not that seems to make anything safe, but it's going to make it much worse. So long story short, working people are working harder, longer, more hours, at more jobs just to try to keep their roof over their head, and that's often the same roof. So when we talk about people moving in, that is great. People who are here also need to be sure that we can, make sure that our housing market fits a variety of needs. So it is very important that we do transit-oriented development for affordable homes in communities around the state, but also that we make sure that the resources and opportunities are available everywhere because New Jersey is growing everywhere. We really have focused on addressing transit and health issues as a way to address the racial housing wealth gap in New Jersey. We are one of the most segregated states in the country. Even though we are extremely diverse, we are extremely segregated. So there's a lot of words on this slide, but the short version is that housing is the commodity that drives wealth in America. And if you do not own a home and you do not have access to home ownership, it is very difficult to build equity, financial equity, and financial independence. So just for the second to third to last bullet, Black families in New Jersey have about $18,000 in household wealth. Hispanic families have about $23,000, and white families have $325,000 in household wealth. So that's not a typo. That is what we are dealing with in New Jersey. And the lack of access to affordable homes near transit exacerbates that because it restricts people's ability to live where they want and also to be able to save enough money to purchase a home should they choose to do that. We know that housing is healthcare and that healthcare is housing, and that when people have access to fresh fruits and vegetables in a supermarket and a vibrant downtown and a place they can see their doctor and a home they can afford near transit that gets them to their jobs or their families or their cultural activities, that their whole community is better off as individuals as neighborhoods. So our real goal is to make sure that we have the kind of interventions at the policy level where we can inform the decisions that policymakers are considering. So foreclosure and eviction diversion and homelessness prevention is really important. Expanding and supporting emergency and long-term rental assistance, permanent supportive housing, transit-oriented development, and just an overall increase in the number of homes that people can afford. And I will say that Jonathan's slide where he showed that 150,000 missing number of units directly ties to the time when Governor Christie and before him Governor Corzine and for a little bit after him Governor Murphy took the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and diverted it for other purposes and left the nonprofit, particularly the nonprofit, but a number of small developers without access to subsidy. And so we have been fighting, as Larissa noted, for now more than a decade to keep that funding in the state budget. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that I think that fight is going to be on again. And so we look forward to working with all of you, and we are hiring also. So I've been told my time is up, but if you want to join the fight to make sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to call home, see me later.
Okay, well, panelists, come on up and sit up. It's time to go through and talk about affordable housing and transit-oriented development. And also, I'm going to open up with a couple questions. Get your questions ready, but also remember Jonathan is here as well, and if you had questions from earlier, you can add those into our discussion. We could bring a chair up. Would you like to sit up? Yeah, there is one more chair. We'll go through the first few questions and probably bring you up, Jonathan, because I think I have a question. I am actually going to pull back and leave this up there. I think it's such a telling slide about affordable housing in New Jersey and what we're up against. So if you don't mind, I'll leave that as a background. Okay. I got the nod from the boss. That's good. Okay, so welcome. I have a few questions to kick off, but affordable housing, it certainly is a popular issue. It certainly is a loaded issue. With the round 4, the number of housing units have varied. I think somewhere along the line landed on 146,000 units, somewhere in that, but I'm hearing up to 500,000 is the real number, as Patrick said. So there's a lot to do in a fairly short amount of time. So what, in general, makes it possible to develop affordable housing in transit-rich places? I believe it was Larissa and Kristen both mentioned New Jersey Transit has some property, so reach out to that. But what is another opportunity to build at transit-rich places? What do we do to convince towns that this is worthwhile? And whoever wants to start.
Do you want me to go? Well, one of the things I failed to mention is I'm a licensed planner, like many in this room, and what we've found more often than not is that towns are not placing affordable housing in proximity to transit. In fact, affordable housing tends to be some of the worst sites in the state, and so obviously, to Jonathan's point before, this is really kicking off a phase of planning where towns should be looking at parcels around not just mass transit but bus transit. Again, we do projects all over the state. Many of the southern counties rely on bus transit to get to jobs and employment and other centers of activity. So right now is the opportunity to zone and plan for those areas around there, utilize redevelopment tools and the redevelopment law to leverage what municipalities should be doing in order to capture their obligations. Because this is an ongoing thing. This is a constitutional requirement. This is round 4. 10 years from now, there will be a round 5. And so everybody should be proactively planning. And unfortunately, I feel more often than not, it's a reaction to a law or regulation But, like, certainly those are the tools that towns should be using. And looking at it from a different variety of contexts, again, density varies, and, so do the communities that surround transit throughout the state.
Stacy, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we.
Go ahead.
Didn't work out this morning. What? You want to go after? Yeah, I also think that the state, we really need to make sure that there are enough subsidy and incentive for nonprofits and for-profit developers to be looking at those sites, because they are often expensive to develop, because they maybe need to be remediated, or there needs to be a lot of, additional construction around access roads. And also really looking at what we say when we mean transit. Patrick mentioned, the rapid bus. I think that's a very underutilized potential source of transportation that we just have not embraced in New Jersey. I'm not originally from here, so sometimes I struggle with why do we not do things this way, even though I've lived here for my entire adult life. But I think that's one piece that we really haven't lifted up, and I think the story about Irvington is really interesting and important, and we should be looking at that, because we get a lot of pushback from some communities that say, well, we can't do transit-oriented development because we don't have a train station, and New Jersey Transit's not going to build a train station, right? You're not building new train stations at the moment.
At the moment.
But rapid bus lanes is something that we could really talk about, and we could change the conversation by having them be net zero emissions, right? We could do electric transit, we could look at fleets of electric buses. So I just think there are innovative ways for us to think about these things, and we just need to do that.
I think, just if you don't mind, I just want to follow on really quickly, because you mentioned the bus rapid transit, and I was also thinking that our transit-friendly planning team just did a project with Old Bridge, for all of the Route 9 corridor. I just happen to be more familiar with the work that they ended up, focusing in on in Old Bridge, and that's a bus corridor, and it's a very popular bus corridor, and it has a tremendous amount of potential for housing and redevelopment that works in tandem with transit. And we do own a site in Old Bridge, which is why we're more familiar with that one. But they also the planning team identified opportunities to connect existing communities better to the corridor. Like everybody knows there's these walls that were put up when you developed these shopping centers back in whenever the 90s or whenever it was, and you can get there as the crow flies to the bus stop pretty quickly, but to be able to do it on the ground is a whole different story. So they've identified ways to improve access for existing residential communities too, which I think is also important. And Michael and Megan will probably fill me in. I should be really shouting out the consultants who did this project too, but I'm worried I might say the wrong ones because it's your project. Courtney, who else, Michael? Perkins Eastman. FHI. They did a wonderful job. So yes, we are also looking at opportunities with bus.
I'll just, I mentioned earlier in one of my slides, we have this 4-unit building in Spring Lake that's adjacent to the train station. The town is very aware of how successful the residents there have been, very much so because it's in the middle of the town and adjacent to the train station. They donated that property, so that's another avenue if you convince a town that there's a will for something, they might have property or be able to help you get property. They also helped fund that project out of their trust funds. We're working with them now that project is maybe 8 years old. We're working with them on another 3-unit project where it's their property, and they are providing funds out of their trust funds. And part of that is that they've seen the success of those residents. So seeing that in real time is helpful, and then taking that as a case study and showing other towns, that's a big thing. There are train stations in a lot of towns that are big train stations. I know I'm from Middletown, New Jersey. There's a large train station on a lot of property, but the zoning around that train station would not allow you to put affordable housing right there right now. So I think just, Larissa mentioned planning, also, educating towns, but also looking at different zoning opportunities. You don't have to blow up a single family neighborhood, but you can look for opportunities to put, 2-3 unit little duplex buildings in those neighborhoods, that fit into the character of the neighborhood, but are also near transit We did an internal survey like a year ago of all of our residents, and we had about 400 responses, and there were some transit questions in there. And we found out that of the 400 that responded, 35% of our residents have no individual transportation, and 6% of them said public transportation is their main mode of transportation. So there's a major disparity there that, you know, we provide housing and we're happy to do that, but we have to close that gap if we're gonna set people up for success. So getting that data out there and getting in front of towns, you know, just educating people and communicating, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah, so I think sometimes is really having a dialogue with the municipality about what its other needs are. So for example, sometimes we focus on, we want to build affordable housing, right? But it may have a need for a community center or something else. And I think it's a willingness to come in as a developer, understand that you have a unique skill set in the ability to structure financing or make something possible that is very difficult for a town to do. So in Plainfield, and this is not an affordable housing project, it's more of a workforce housing project, there was an RFP, and we won that RFP because we agreed to pay $2.5 million to develop the actual train station area into a more community-centric place for all members of Plainfield, as opposed to it being seen as you're building a new apartment building that somebody already owns a house that lives there. It's like, I don't need to live in that apartment unit, but that person could benefit from the fact that there's going to be more economic activity downtown. So I think maybe we, as people who are very interested in affordable housing, maybe have to have more of a conversation with municipalities about what else can I do for you, or how could I facilitate something happening for you and bring a level of creativity to make something possible that, because most governments are very limited in the amount of resources they have. They tend to have 99+% of their budgets already accounted for, and they want to provide services to their current residents, and maybe offering to do something in that vein is helpful.
Before we open it up, I do want to ask you about one of the other sides. We often find we have opportunity to talk with towns, especially with the round 4. This is going to come up over and over again about what to build. But you started to touch on something, Patrick, about some of possible displacement. And I would like to ask, you know, as we're talking about building more affordable housing, we know sometimes the transit-rich places are also going to be the more expensive places. I know although, you know, we talk about affordable, we often don't find we're at the same place as a definition of what that affordability really is. For some residents, even what we call affordable housing isn't really affordable. So I'd love if maybe, Stacey, you could start with talking about your concerns around, you know, when we're building these new housing units as part of round 4, what are we looking for to monitor and address any sort of displacement issues or gentrification?
So a couple of things, and I guess no pressure, right?
Sorry, I love to pick on you first.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. You know, most of the communities that have a fair housing, new construction or prospective need are not the places that I would be most concerned about gentrifying. I think those are the folks that have more of a rehab need, and so more of our urban corridor and our growing cities, which, you know, we have seen a lot of resurgence in interest in folks living in urban areas because they have so much to offer and they're dynamic, and to the extent that people, you know, want to have cultural activities and be able to do things 24/7 and have a dynamic and vibrant neighborhood, there are places in New Jersey that are looking to develop those kinds of amenities and are attracting lots of people from lots of places who are either living in New Jersey now and want to change the kind of community that they're living in, or they're coming here from another place because they know how great it is. And so I think the gentrification piece is more of a private sector investment and kind of vulture, you know, capitalism experience, where we have all of these hedge funds picking up, you know, beating out nonprofits, small developers, neighborhood area community groups to purchase properties and turn what could have been home ownership opportunity into a rental property and really extracting as much wealth from those neighborhoods and those families as possible. And so one thing we've tried to do to prevent that destabilization of neighborhoods, well, there's a bunch of things, but starting with making sure that we can, the local leaders and nonprofit organizations can get in touch with the LLCs that are purchasing those properties. There are a lot that people don't even know who they are, right? It's unclear what their interest in our community or neighborhood might be. And then secondly, the Community Wealth Preservation Program, which is a new piece of legislation that was signed this year by Governor Murphy and spearheaded by Senator Brittany Timberlake, starting when she was an assembly person, that gives families the ability to protect their property. If someone is in foreclosure, they have the right to have somebody else in their family take ownership of that property. And so that seems like a small thing, but it's actually a really big one. The second piece of that is if there isn't a family member, then a nonprofit has the right of first refusal to take ownership of that property and potentially put it back into the hands of that family or another lower income family if they qualify. So there's that description of affordable. When we say affordable, we mean affordable to families at or below 80% of area median income. We absolutely need all kinds of other homes, but that is the group of people who is facing the most difficult burden, choosing between heating and eating, between keeping a roof over their head or taking their child to the doctor, or foregoing things that make our economy hum. If people can't afford to spend their income on things other than rent, then we are basically a feudal system where people are just living to be able to have a place to live, which is not a good way to run a society. So we need more affordable homes, and for the very lowest income folks.
So I think it's interesting, right? Because New Jersey is considered really, really expensive, and there's still a lot of places where we could actually build affordable housing that are rich, build transit-oriented development environments, and that includes, areas outside of Essex County and Union County, right? But structuring an affordable housing deal is very complex. You're syndicating low-income housing tax credits, or we're doing something with Aspire, right? So I think to the extent that we can, you still have a lot of places where it's still very feasible and it makes sense to build mixed income housing that are transit-oriented areas, that are rich, that are not Jersey City. So for example, it still makes sense to do mixed income, a mixed finance, mixed income project in Newark, New Jersey, even though Newark has become extremely popular. Using something like Aspire with the 4% low income tax credit program, right? And you can do that in Plainfield, and there's probably like about 25, 30, 40 different places in New Jersey you can still do so, and you can minimize gentrification, right? But you may not be able to minimize it as much in Jersey City because the price point is going to be so high, right, for land purchase. Which is why, again, and this is just my personal opinion, I'm really, really a big proponent of trying to build affordable housing where it's feasible to do so and where it's a less restrictive process. I really have no interest anymore in, I know there are good people like Stacy, for example, who are doing the good fight of trying to ensure that, and I really applaud you for it, of building affordable housing in areas that are resisting it. I'm more interested in providing the capacity, providing the units, meeting the demand that's needed, and making sure that we create policies and make changes that's exempted to Aspire, or whatever it is that's going to get us to be able to build in downtown communities in South Jersey, pushing back a little bit on New Jersey transit. Like maybe we need to focus more on New Jersey and less on how we get into New York City, which I think is a big emphasis. And I'm tired of the focus on how do we get in New York City? Like, forget about getting into New York City. If we focus more on building out more bus rapid transit, like Curitiba in Brazil, right, is famous for it. They have a whole loop system. Then you could make places like Salem and Penn's Grove and areas outside of Vineland, right, that actually have downtowns, right, more livable, and the price of land is cheaper there, right? And maybe we take into account that they have a lower median income as well, right, which means that you probably need to give more subsidy support, right, with Aspire. I think the differential between somewhere like I think it's Salem County Essex County, median income differential is, you probably have the Essex County, Newark, which is I think the poorest town in Essex County, is at 40-something thousand, and in Salem, I think the poorest county is like, the poorest municipality might be like at 20,000, right? Something like that. So there's a big difference. So you need more support from like an Aspire program to fill that gap so it becomes more feasible to build housing there. And then we do sort of like this combination with transit and say, how do we build transit out in those areas and stop talking about how do we get into New York City? Thank you.
I don't want to cut anybody off. I just wanted to respond a little bit to what you said about wanting to build where the building is easier, less expensive, less regulatory hurdles. And I think that's why A4, S50, and Mount Laurel is so important, because if we just rely on the market, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, I completely agree with you about internal transit stuff, as somebody who couldn't go 7 miles down a straight road to get to work except to drive. I couldn't take mass transit, it was insane. I just feel like it's really important for people to acknowledge that the market alone is not going to deliver the commodity for people who need a safe, affordable place to live. And that if we want to address the overwhelming racial wealth gap and the segregation that New Jersey experiences, we have to have a system where every community has to do their fair share. If we only rely on the market forces to go where it's easiest, we will always only have development in those places, and we will not have support for the kinds of projects that Chris and his colleagues at Affordable Housing Alliance are doing, because there's very few places in Monmouth County, for example, that meet that definition, right?
Yeah, and that
So-
was.
So if I just may, Chris,
Sure.
sorry. So I happen to be a black person, right? And I'm going to say this, and I understand where Stacey's coming from. I, unfortunately, can't wait, right, for the views of people to change, right? We have to accept the reality of where we are. And again, Stacey, I think it's important to continue that fight, right? I believe 2 years ago I would have said, I don't care about that fight, but the fight is very important, right? Meaning like I can't spend my time, I couldn't as a black person, and I hate to bring it about that, but it is, right? I can't wait for people to change. We know why many communities have resisted fair share and building affordable housing. It is about race, right? It is, quite frankly, about race, right? It is about race. I also believe, though, that we're trying to fix a historic problem, which was redlining, by also using race, right? So this is like political football as well, right? And let me say this, I'm extremely socially liberal, right? I'm definitely, I just want to put it out there, like I'm the guy that's like totally liberal, right? About everything, right? But there are some realities, right? So while we're doing this fight over the 65,000 units or the 85,000 units or the 500,000 units, trying to get people to build 240 units in some XYZ town, I did 700 units in 5 years, right? And we're going to do about 800 or 900 units in the next 2 or 3 years, right? But it's just not going to be where we want it to happen. And respectfully, I am tired of fighting with those people. Like if you want this world where you want to be 99% white and you believe that being 99% white is good for you, then be it, and Stacey and everybody else should keep fighting that. I want a diverse community because I think diversity leads to better outcomes. It leads to a richer environment. I want to see women in positions of power and all that stuff because we get different perspectives. That's the world I want to live in, and that's the world I'm going to build, to continue to build.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. I feel like I can speak to both sides a little here because I did work for a private developer that builds affordable housing for a bunch of years, and I totally understand the perspective of going where that was our motto: was go where you're wanted, don't go to fight, go where you can put up as many units as possible that can get funded, and that is the most efficient way to create more affordable housing. That's where we're going to get the most units. But at the same time, from, as someone who appreciates my local community that I'm from and working at a community development organization, that doesn't fix the fact that there are these problems in these other towns that have to get addressed. And I think in Monmouth County, like in these transit-oriented towns too, specifically like Asbury and Red Bank, you see tons of gentrification, and there's not really places for a lot of those people to go. On the west side of Red Bank, the house costs have exploded like they have everywhere, but really exponentially in that area. And you see a neighborhood of long-term renters who are being forced out of their houses because these long-term owners all of a sudden can sell their houses to developers to flip them for, $700-800 grand. And these people are out of luck. And if there is a solution, I would love to know it. We have been banging our heads against the walls trying to help these people. I know we've had tons, our CEO, Randy Moore, specifically, has been very big on this issue, but we've had tons of meetings with local philanthropic groups to try to have them come in and maybe purchase properties and create land trusts where we can keep these properties affordable in perpetuity. We haven't figured out a model that works yet, but we're working towards it. But yeah, it's a problem. So if all you, any bright students out there come up with any future solutions, we would love to hear it. But yeah, it's a problem we're fighting to solve, but yeah.
Great, okay.
I just want to chime in and say that there are people, I work with people at New Jersey Transit who are very much in tune with these issues and concerned about everything that everybody here has brought up. And, I panic at the thought of like, okay, so we're going to get, 78 units of affordable housing in Hoboken. And we're very proud of that. But it's rental. Everything we're doing right now is rental. And in the back of my mind, I spent 30 years working in Baltimore, and the big thing there was like wealth building, and home ownership. And so, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that we want to, connect with everybody in the affordable housing community and everybody who's concerned about gentrification and displacement, and try to figure out how we can, from the transit agency's perspective, while still being true to our core mission, of course, how we can work through some of these issues together.
Go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to touch on our programs. We avoid urban or uniform relocation requirements. Simply, land that you come to us with for financing either has to be vacant or the structure has to be vacant, and just to avoid some of those issues. Again, I do very small scale development. Obviously, the larger redevelopment can, come into gentrification. But to your point on home ownership, we're one of the few agencies that actually supports and finances home ownership opportunities. I have 40 units through 4 different nonprofits building affordable home ownership in Camden. We've got 20 units in Newark right now under construction, 6 units in Salem City. Hopefully 6 more units in Atlantic City. So those are things that we're trying to address. There's not a lot of public financing that addresses home ownership, but we certainly have down payment assistance programs that have been successful through the agency. But that is a good tenure and mechanism of housing that I think is not often thought about and should be. It's just a little bit harder to do with 100% affordable, but you can certainly do it with mixed income communities. So.
Great. All right. We are opening the discussion to anybody who has questions, and way in the back there, so you'll have to stand up. Thank you. If you would actually say who you are and before you.
No. Good morning, Steve Grillo. I'm the Executive Director of the Special Improvement District in Millburn Short Hills. I'm also a proud board member of DNJ. I love these conferences, so thank you so much for putting on. So Millburn Short Hills is one of the wealthiest towns in the state. On the plus side of the ledger, we have a thriving downtown. We were just named as one of the 4 new Main Street, New Jersey communities, and we have a train station in the heart of downtown. On the negative side of the ledger, we are currently in 2 separate litigations against our affordable housing settlements. The Republican Party of the town, which has just picked up 2 seats, their #1 campaign promotion is to fight affordable housing to death. And so we're in an odd situation, and my question to you guys is, I guess to use a football analogy, I'm not looking to throw 4 touchdown passes. I'm looking to move the ball 5 yards down the field. They won't consider transit villages. They won't consider areas that need redevelopment. We've never done one in the history of the town. We need to figure out how to build even a small amount of affordable housing in our downtown, but there is zero will to do so. In fact, it's quite the opposite. They're aggressively fighting against it. What are the simplest tactics that we can use, whether it's looking at rezoning our downtown to create more affordable housing? How do we get over this specter of we just don't want anything? Because we need a little something.
Excellent question. Does anybody want to?
I can't speak to Milburn directly, but I think the rhetoric that's happening, like for instance, if you read some of the resolutions that were just filed with the AOC, Union Beach Borough in Monmouth County is a very small coastal community that has a 48-unit prospective need obligation, and the mayor was just quoted in the paper saying, "Oh, now we got to build 500 units to get 48 units." That's not true. There are mechanisms and bonuses written within the law that you could do a 25-unit project with a nonprofit like Affordable Housing Alliance and get, quarter bonuses, and you've fulfilled a majority of your obligation without changing the entire context of your town. Obviously, that can't apply to some other municipalities that have larger obligations. Obviously, you're going to be looking at larger inclusionary sites, maybe some LIHTC deals, which are very competitive. But again, looking at those different mechanisms, trying to find ways to address the needs of your community. Again, I know Milburn's a very affluent community, but I can imagine there are people who have certain needs that that they can address through the affordable housing model. For instance, we do a lot of disabled and homeless veterans housing. The state has a large Bringing Veterans Home initiative to end veterans homelessness. We're seeing American Legions throughout the state redevelop their American Legion facilities to integrate affordable housing. So, there are partners like that, but really understanding who lives in those communities and addressing some of those immediate needs is a good way to get local input in and address, your elected officials, work for your constituents. That's what they're supposed to do, and represent them. And so I think if those needs come from those local people, and not so much coming down from the state or the legislature, there might be more amenable terms to actually do something.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Oh, I was going to say something similar to Larissa. I'm not sure who we are when you're talking about the town, because it sounds like there's definitely different factions. But a small organizing committee of people who care about these issues can do kind of a power mapping analysis. Who's got, which faith institutions are in your community, which employers are in your community, or what's the biggest employer that in the area that employs the most folks or the second most folks. How do people get around Milburn, Short Hills, and what do they need to make their day and lifetime there better? And so really having a narrative about why building more homes that people can afford is better for the community and will drive economic success can be very helpful. Not using the term affordable housing is a little insider trick. I know we're being videotaped, so now everybody knows. But we try to talk never ever to say the word unit, because nobody comes home to their unit, they come home to their home. So really thinking about how you're communicating about these decisions and who is telling the story about why homes that people can afford are a necessary economic investment in your community is much better than talking about the mandate from the State House that you build X number of affordable units. Most regular people, of which there are probably very few in this room, because we all know what a lot of these acronyms mean, which make us sort of a little bit maybe more out of touch than we realize. You have to really talk to people about what it is that they are looking for in their community, and then talk to them in the same language that they use. So try that.
Yeah, I'll just add, and Larissa kind of touched on a lot of these points already, but
Yeah.
is it on or no?
I don't think it's on here.
Hello.
There's no light on it, so it's probably not.
Okay, I'll steal yours for a second. Yeah, Larissa touched on a lot of these points already. But I think population is key, thinking about who your audience is with the town that you're dealing with. A lot of towns who are anti-affordable housing do at least entertain once you start mentioning veterans as a possible population, and that's an inroad to start getting somewhere. The National Housing Trust Fund from DCA has victims of domestic violence as a possible population to do small 4-unit or less building. That's a population to start with as an inroads that people are usually amenable to hearing about if they're typically against affordable housing. And I know I said education earlier, and I'll reiterate it. I know that's easier said than done, but just getting in front of the proper people and letting them know if they have the wrong information. What Larissa just said about the mayor of Union Beach, there's numerous other mayors in Monmouth and Ocean County that have said the same thing basically, and I don't know if it's political rhetoric and they're intentionally saying that, or if they're just uneducated in the process. But I think getting out there with the proper information with the right audience is key as well.
And I have to say, I think the Union Beach one is interesting, partially because I, weirdly enough, had a conversation with my dad about literally Union Beach like weeks ago, and their obligation. Because the funny thing is, once you add in like bonus credits, right? Like if you owe 48 units, or you have to build 48 units, once you start adding in bonus credits, it's really more like 36, 37, and that's one building, right? Like, but anyway. The two things I would note are, to the question at hand, without being like specific to the town, given that they're suing everyone, is when you're trying to communicate in general, you don't have to talk about it in the terms of housing. One of the things that this, and I tried to kind of cover this at the beginning, is this is an opportunity to reconceptualize what your town is going to be going forward. One thing I would certainly note is, Shokin, who here thinks your school districts are getting overcrowded? Right? The vast majority are not. Most schools they have plummeting enrollment numbers. Now, granted, that means you have, likely, like my town has less students in it than it did when I was in high school. And now we hear all the time about there's building apartments and there's going to be so many kids and the schools are going to be overcrowded. Even if that boosts the school population, I can tell you that will still be less kids than when I was there 15, 16 years ago, however old I am at this point. And it would be less kids in the school districts than when I was there literally less than 2 decades ago. And honestly, a declining school district is going to be really bad for your property values over the long haul. Because a school district that is declining gets less funding. A school district with less funding is going to start performing worse. A school district that's performing worse is going to hurt your property values. But the other side is this gives you an opportunity to reconceptualize, right? If you want to build or boost your downtown, this is a great opportunity to do it. One of the best examples of that is Metuchen. I don't know if anyone has been in Metuchen in the last 5 years. If you've been in Metuchen in the last 5 years, since they built out, like right down, I forget what that side street is, it basically made it turned their downtown from a one little main street into a T. It's awesome. And you go there on a Saturday, there's farmers markets, there's people are out, it's alive. It's a real opportunity to do that. And the other thing I would note, and this is kind of just my overarching thing, living in a town where there's a lot of development going on, quite honestly, living around the corner from where, like, I think 1,000 units went in over the last 3 years, like have opened up in the last like 3 to 4 years in 3 or 4 different apartment complexes or apartment buildings. People are really mad when construction is starting. People are really mad when the traffic is being detoured. People are really mad when they start seeing the structures go up. When they're done, nobody cares. Like truly, when it's over and the build and people move in, yeah, traffic patterns change a little bit and that can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, all of a sudden, now they're your neighbors, right? Like people kind of stop caring once the construction is done.
So, I'm actually familiar with Milburn, and the Short Hills Association actually sued the McCallie development next to Short Hills, where a 2-bedroom apartment is $10,000, right? Yeah, they did. They did. This was about 6 years ago. They also sued a project in Livingston, which was called affordable housing, and I happen to know some of the people that were in that group, and they were asking me for advice on their suing. It was considered affordable because the townhomes, and this was about 7 years ago, was going to be $650,000, right? So I hear you, but I think we have to face the reality of the situation at some point. This is political. It is not meant to be bad by saying that. Some of us have certain views. We want to live a certain way. Some people want to live in areas where their primary suit when the Short Hills Association was suing Livingston for development behind them is that it would potentially bring down their home values, right? And I don't want to argue with them anymore. So everything you said, they know, right? They're very, very smart people. They know, for example, that the typical person at 60% AMI has $40-something thousand a year. It's probably your kid who went to NYU and went to Steinhardt and did social work, and you're making $25,000 a year, or you're an artist. And they probably would be okay with it if you could somehow prevail on Larissa and Tony back in the day to change UHAC and say we'll exempt you from having to build 3-bedroom units and 2-bedroom units, and you could build 60% or 70% of the units as 1-bedroom, and then we would have affordable housing for a single person. I don't think they'd have a big issue. Memphis is a very, very sophisticated town. They actually know these things really well. They don't want to have affordable housing, that section. So I think my suggestion to you, sir, is get as much political power as you can, control the council, get to majority vote, change the planning board, let's just be real about it. That's actually what we do as developers when we want to make something happen. We try to create a vehicle, an incentive to get people elected to office, just going to be blunt, that shift the composition of the city council so that it's 5-2, it's a majority. If I'm trying to develop in a town and the city council is against it, I'm going to try to figure out how to change the political landscape. And that's how you do it.
Okay.
I'll say to that real quick. I think too, in a lot of towns, you'd be surprised, you can usually find one person that is on your side somewhere within that town government. And if you work with them, you might make progress over the course of a decade. It might take forever, but there's usually one person within a town that believes this stuff, even when you don't think there will be.
I do think that messaging around the 50 units means you have to do 500 is pervasive along with the school issue, and really making sure that if you're the nonprofit, or I guess the for-profit developer, working in a community, that you are doing all of that community education, that is not true. I mean, some folks know that I have been trying to do what Patrick has talked about for a while. Yeah. And it's really, it's a long, hard slog. And when you're talking to people and they say, but if we have to do, 1,000 units, that really means we have to do 5,000 units. The answer to that is no. That is, you do not know how to actually do this development. Maybe you need to hire a consultant who actually has done some development in this, in this millennium, because there are subsidy opportunities where you do not have to do every single thing, and please again, don't take this the wrong way, and not everything has to be done by an inclusionary zoning ordinance for a for-profit developer, just including 15 to 20%.
Correct.
You can do a lot of that, 100% affordable, use those bonus credits. If you need to get to a number that seems difficult, you have to be creative and serve the community that you are elected or appointed, depending on your role, to serve. And so just saying, well, we're going to do the easy thing because it's cheap or free for the town, which is what a lot of when I hear elected officials saying we're going to do, we're going to do 10 times the number of units or 20 times the number of units, it's because they don't want to have to pay for it, and they don't want to have to help a developer get the subsidy dollars that they could use to do the 100% affordable.
Right.
The one thing I do want to just kind of highlight for everyone though is when we're talking about like towns saying, oh, I have to build 48 units, which means I really need to build 500. obviously if they mean that as a bad thing, we have to correct them, but like if they do mean it as a good thing, don't stop them.
Well, yeah.
I haven't met that Mary.
She'll be that Mary.
All right, we have a few. All right, I'll go in the back and then I'll come up to front. Okay, go ahead, yep.
Good morning, I think it's still morning. My name is Michael Laplace. I'm the administrator at Borough of Middlesex, here in Middlesex County, but I'm a planner by profession. The reason I'm here this morning, and thank you all for all the important work you do and for being here today, I certainly appreciate it. The reason I'm here today is the combination of talking about affordable housing and TOD really caught me, because that's a strategy I think would really work in a suburban town like mine, where there's obviously resistance, or let's say a lack of enthusiasm to do affordable housing in terms of leadership. The problem I'm facing, well, first of all, the positive is that we have a rather large redevelopment area, which was set up by our redevelopment plan, which was approved. It's adjacent to New Jersey Transit, Raritan Valley Line. It has a designated town center site for mixed-use development. It even has a former New Jersey transit site, which is still deed restricted by New Jersey Transit for use as a passenger station. The only thing that's missing from our TOD is the T. Every time I speak to someone at New Jersey Transit, they either change the subject or they discourage us from reactivating passenger service at Middlesex, which is ridiculous because we had passenger service for 100 years before it was discontinued, and we had low density at the time. So, you know, in terms of TOD and affordable housing and trying to do all the other good things you want to do, like not have as much parking required in a development, you got to have the transit. And in New Jersey, that means New Jersey Transit. And I want to know, how do we get New Jersey Transit to be a partner? Right now, you're kind of killing me because I can't talk about it.
I know you now that you like finished your conversation, now that you went through your whole spiel. Yeah, no, and yeah, because you responded to our TOD policy statement, both directly and through LinkedIn, and no, well, we got the message. We got the message, and unfortunately, like I am not like the service planner person, and I don't know if any other of my colleagues here want to like address this, but I hear what you are saying, and I'm happy to talk to you afterwards and maybe connect you with somebody who might be able to help, but I don't personally have that juice.
but quite frankly, I've had this response for years now. And
yeah.
You guys are our transit agency. This is ridiculous. We sit on an active train line. We have a site that's primed for it, and it will help us do all these other great objectives like affordable housing and economic development for my town. I don't want to just be told, oh, we don't want to add another station. It will kill our lead time getting into Northern New York. Come on, we got to change the thinking here.
There's somebody behind you who can speak up.
Developer.
Stand up, Megan.
Okay. I'm Megan from
Oh,
Transit.
they're in the back.
You're surrounded.
Off the top of my head is Megan Massey and not New Jersey Transit. You could always link up with a developer who is really eager to build around this deed-restricted transit and really put up the funds that are needed to reactivate a station, create a sense of place. I mean, we're talking millions and billions of dollars, but if you can find the right partnerships that can come together and work with us, we would be, I would assume, amenable to discussing it, but like, unless you've got like a cool 10 million to start the conversation, we can't just go opening up random train stations when we can't run the service that we have, Like,
to get into New York.
So, yeah, but,
not unless we're getting into New York.
But honestly, I guess I was addressing this sort of with my planner's hat on, and I was thinking in terms of, the best plans are ones when partners are working together. I already have had developer interest, but every time they say, how does New Jersey Transit feel about this being a stop, we don't have New Jersey Transit literally on board yet. So it's sort of like, talk about the chicken and the egg here. Where eggs are,
But why-
eggs are
I guess-
expensive and chicken legs are expensive, but.
So are
But why is our,
Show up with $10 million before New Jersey Transit.
yeah, that, I mean, no, but seriously, why is this not a policy discussion that that your elected officials are having in Trenton about how they restart your train station? Because as much as I think it's great if a developer can come in, I don't think that that's really the role of private capital. This is a public entity. With all due respect to my friends and allies at New Jersey Transit, well, one, there's now a corporate business tax fee that's dedicated to improving the service that New Jersey Transit provides, which is desperately needed for lower income residents around our state. So this is to me, this is a question of political muscle and how other folks can maybe help the borough of Middlesex get New Jersey Transit to the table to figure out a way to get some revenue in that is not, private sector dependent. So I'm getting advice in my ear. somebody somewhere from Middlesex should be, county, should be involved in this conversation. I know that they're sometimes slow, to move, but we can talk after.
And I agree with Stacey that it needs to be a policy discussion, and I love that you bring up the corporate business tax, but that has a sunset period, and that goes away in 2029, I believe, and it can also.
Not if we can help it.
Okay, and also
I mean, everybody has to, you have to fight for what you want.
Yes.
I don't know how else, we can't do it all.
assumes that money is gonna be obligated to transit and transit alone, but with a flick of a whatever, it can be diverted to anything else.
It's not supposed to be. Listen, as someone who spent the last 10 years of my life, and I have the gray hair to show for it, fighting to keep the Affordable Housing Trust Fund where it's supposed to be, I completely agree with you, but I don't think it's fair to tell the municipality that they need to come to the table with a developer who's gonna restart a public transit location. I just feel like that's the government's job, and we need to make them do their job, because if they don't, they won't. If we don't do that, then they won't.
We have somebody else, if I could, we have somebody else from New Jersey Transit who is ready to respond.
So I work for SEPTA, so it's a
Okay.
different transit agency perspective. I work in long-range planning. We also do our transit-oriented development, which we call transit-oriented communities. I would just say you should get elected officials involved. That is how you get funding. That's how you put pressure on a transit agency. If you're a state elected official or your federal elected official, start saying you need to do a planning study to look at an infill station, it will happen. And then I would say, please do not recommend that they come with a developer in hand.
No, I'm sorry, I was being-
Because that is how people get indicted.
Things catch fire at the party.
The only problem we've been facing is that everyone laughs at us because they say New Jersey Transit doesn't agree with this, or New Jersey Transit doesn't want to stop there. So that is really the challenge I'm facing. I have plenty of interest from the development community. I'm trying to win over my own town because they keep saying New Jersey Transit's told us no way.
All right, but I'm going to offer one other perspective.
Stand up, Stephanie.
So I'm Stephanie DiPiccolo. I introduced myself at the beginning of the program. One other perspective that research has said, just build it. You know what happens?
No, well, it is what it
Your
is.
your station comes back. Because if you have to, if you prove that people are there, everyone's like, well, of course we're going to put some resources into the station area. You don't, the idea of the station is what centers development and it centers a center, but you already have a center. Build your project. You have to convince the developers that they can build it regardless of whether they have the transit.
Yeah, I think the part you didn't hear about my original comment was that we want to do TOD development in terms of not only
I understand that, but there's a
affordable
whole
housing, but
series.
in terms of design, and it's very hard to convince people.
Okay,
both
in
the
terms
town
of
and the
design,
developer,
I understand
to do
you.
half the parking requirement or no parking if you have no transit.
Understood. But the research says there's a whole thread of research about TOD without the T, because building intensively in a place with a center is still a good idea. So one of the things that I want us not to forget.
Great. Tim was next, so go ahead, Tim.
You can use the mic here.
Yeah.
It's on. Hi, I'm Tim Evans from New Jersey Future.
I'm standing so you can see I'm wearing my Eagles green this week.
There you go.
New Jersey, New Jersey Future, among other things, we were created to be the watchdog organization for the New Jersey State Development and Redevelopment Plan. So since Larissa and Jonathan have both talked about the need for better planning, I feel like I should mention two important things that have happened very recently. One is that in December, the State Planning Commission adopted a draft update to the state plan. It's the first time this has happened since 2001 in my first couple of years at New Jersey Future. It's been a long time coming, and if all goes well, they'll adopt the final version of the plan in December. And the other important thing that happened is with A4, the affordable housing legislation, they wrote into the law that towns are supposed to cite their affordable units based on the principles of the state plan. Now, it's still being worked out exactly what that means. That's the sort of thing that you let the administrative process define and not try to write it out in the bill. But the Office of Planning Advocacy, which it's the state agency that serves as the staff to the State Planning Commission, they're working on guidance for municipalities for what does that mean for your Mount Laurel units to be consistent with the state plan, and they're hoping to have it out in like another month or so. So very soon, a bunch of towns are going to find out that we have a state plan and that there's actually going to be guidance for them to figure out how to better cite their affordable units. Now, I don't know what the enforcement mechanism is going to look like. I'm not a legal guy, so I don't know what happens if a town reads this and says, oh, we're still going to put the affordable units on the wrong side of the tracks, away from everything. But I think it's a really good thing that this requirement is in there at all, because it's making some towns just really want help figuring out where to put the units, and this document is going to give it to them. So keep your eyes out for that. And one final thing, unrelated to that, but we're also very concerned about the issue of displacement. And in fact, I have a Princeton student working for me for the first half of this year, figuring out how to measure that. It's really hard to measure, but if any of you have thoughts about that, Chris, I'm probably going to be emailing you about Red Bank and Asbury Park. I'm definitely interested in feedback from, if you are in a town where you feel like this is happening, I'd love to hear what makes you think that that's happening, so we can try to operationalize it and give people signs to look for, how to tell if your town is in danger of displacing long-time residents. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy.
But no, I was just going to say, Tim, I want to talk about that.
Okay, so I'm going to go front here. If you...
Hi, Lisa from Cranberry Township. We don't have the tracks in that case. There's not a right or wrong side. We just don't have tracks. We're in what I would call a transit desert in a way. We have a county road, Route 130, that goes through, but there's no formalized bus service there from like an academy or a New Jersey Transit or any of that. Our closest train station is Princeton Junction. So while we're looking and in the discovery phase of finding locations and I would say with enthusiasm, supportive of affordable housing, we're missing the T. And that's gonna make us like not compliant, right? There's certain things that need to be associated with the land that you choose. And if you don't have anything close to transit to provide, you're like it's 7, 10, 15 miles and it's all auto related. So what do towns do when they're more rural based and in that kind of transit desert?
I can add, I know we're in a transit oriented seminar now, but yeah, we've done a number of projects in Millstone, New Jersey, which is rural. Millstone has made attempts to get a bus stop, and they haven't been successful yet, but they are rallying to do that, and have been at times. But I could say we have a lot of service providers that assist us basically with transportation for residents. I mentioned the tax credit development that we're working on. That's in Millstone. That's 67 apartments. There's 5 units in there set aside for very low-income homeless individuals that we don't expect to have automobiles. HMFA, I don't know if Jonathan's aware of this, but they've allowed us to build in a supportive services escrow for transportation. So we're going to give every household an Uber gift card of, I think, $2,500 a year of those 5 units for 10 years. So you just really have to get creative. There's a lot of local organizations that will help. There's a local is it a VFW? I think it's a VFW that's local that picks up our seniors sometimes and takes them to events and things like that. So I think just rallying as much as you can, keep, I know I'm sitting next to transit, but
it's okay.
keep pushing for what you need transportation wise. I think kind of, it was touched on earlier that we do have to expand transportation around New Jersey. There's a lot of places that need more access to get from point A to point B in New Jersey. But yeah, there's creative ways if you talk with developers, and I think the state agencies are willing to help fund creative things in places like that at times. I don't want to speak for anyone, but I'm just putting it out there.
Looking at me.
But yeah, I could talk with you more about like things we've done. We've had other developments in some rural towns, but yeah.
I think you were next in, yeah.
My name is Nanda Makali. I'm with LRK. We're planning an architecture firm. I'm glad that a couple of people talked about the pork roll part of New Jersey. I live down in Collingswood. I wanted to know two things. One is, what has been your agency's focus on DRPA and the PATCO parking lots? Because those are non-private and they're public properties that could support a lot of housing and a lot of affordable housing. Second question is, what's happening with GCL?
Yeah.
Gloucester Camden, sorry.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I can tell you from, my prior position in Cherry Hill Township, the Woodcrest PATCO Park and Ride is probably one of the most widely utilized train station in the state, not just in South Jersey, but in the state. And we tried many moons ago to get redevelopment in there. I think your prior firm did a study about how building out that parking lot. DRPA has, I think, a long-term lease with New Jersey Transit on that site, if I recall from John Hanson telling me. But there was a lot of pushback to put development on. Obviously, people go to the park and ride because they want to drive to the train station to get on the train. But there's certainly opportunities in Ashland and Voorhees, where I live across the street from the Westmont PATCO station, in Haddon Township. Collingswood had a near 150 unit project going behind the train station that was kind of poo-pooed by some advocates who were suing all these towns because it was largely senior. But there certainly is land available. It's just, again, a matter of coordinating with these agencies to try and get some creative solutions to that excess land. We talked about putting structured parking, which is an expensive endeavor, but trying to do that to make up for the loss of putting housing on those lots. Now, there's certainly housing going in adjacencies to those areas, like, Cherry Hill did a redevelopment area across the street. They put in 370 units, which is right across from the PATCO station, and then zoned the other half of the lot after I left to warehousing, which makes no sense. And again, if we can build these 1 million square foot warehousing, I don't see why we can't build affordable housing or housing at all. So yeah, the school children, those devils. But yeah, those certainly have been challenges, but there is that availability there, and so I would go to Kristen on New Jersey Transit, because the Gloucester Camden line, those towns that go through Gloucester County are also in a hard fight to fight and stop that train line, which would be awesome to get transit from one of the fastest growing counties in the Northeast to Philadelphia. Go Birds.
I am not the right person to answer your question, and I really am sorry. I don't mean to defer your question. I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I also don't mean to put any of my other colleagues who are here in the audience on the spot. If there is somebody from New Jersey Transit who is able to answer that here and now, that's great. If not, can you come talk to me afterwards? Okay.
In the front here.
Actually, I do. Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry,
Mike
but
Viscardi, go
there
ahead,
is
stand
somebody
up.
who can answer his question, I think.
Mike Viscardi, New Jersey Transit Planning. The Woodcrest, I created a large site, and I've used it several times, and I had actually thought about that. We also looked at Woodcrest to create a tunnel to make an Atlantic City stop, but that was very complicated. Jumping back to the RVL, I've been working extensively on the RVL for many years. One of the problems is probably explained to you is about service planning. Rail service planning is very tight. We actually looked at a one-seat ride study to New York City because right now, you know, there is no, during rush hour, there is no direct. That's really, people on the RVL really want that, but there's difficulty with that. And even when we looked into it, there's issues with Amtrak and timing and everything else. As far as the station goes, besides the rail service planning, having worked on it, this is the first I've heard that there's been interest in the station. I've heard rumblings, but never anything as strong as what you said. To what Megan said, you know, to come up with some funding up front. We have many stations, many on the RVL that are currently not compliant with ADA. You got to build high-level platforms, elevators, retrofit. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. And we looked at the whole system around 2015, 2016. And even not to build out the platform system-wide to what we would need, even putting in smaller platforms at some stations, you're looking at $5–6 billion for the whole system to make it ADA compliant. So RVL has many stations, Denella and Fanwood. We got to get those, you know, compliant. So to come up with another station, again, not knowing the rail service planning timing, yeah, you know, if somebody, I think, you know, having some assistance from the development end would be maybe one way to look at it. If I will take a look at the site you got, you know, that's what I do. I'll take a look at it, but I'll go to rail service planning and they'll just, you know, they'll probably chase me out the room. But
more people back in the room. That's how this works.
But you know, bringing it up. I think if you build it, they will come. I agree with that, but it's not. It's just not that easy. It really is a lot of things. Like I said, we really got to bring our whole system to compliance. Denella's up high, and to try to make that compliant, put elevators in and things like that. You're talking $50–60 million just for one station. So yeah, I will take a look, but I can't. All we can do is, you know. Well, what's the discussion?
We have time for one more question. I want to be respectful of ending on time, so I had already, we can.
I'll make it as quick as possible.
Great.
Ben Bedawi, Cranberry, New Jersey. I served with Lisa on the township. Lisa's mayor this year. I'm deputy mayor this year. We have, and I'm so grateful to say, always and consistently respected our affordable housing obligation. We have completed our third round.
Nice.
We're looking forward to the fourth round. We have not challenged the number. We understand that there will be some credits that will come our way. I think that in many ways we have seen how the community and its you know, many colors sort of lifts each other up. And so, very interestingly enough, you know, we took upon the model of integrating our facilities throughout the town, so you really cannot tell an affordable unit from a non-affordable unit, or from a regular unit, I should say. And for the most part, we've tried to keep things downtown, where families, residents, children can walk to school, walk to the businesses, get to a restaurant, all the things that you want to do when you are serving a community, and truly serving a community. And that is not necessarily work that we have done. We're relatively new on our positions. We're just trying to hopefully extend that good grace as we move forward. Interestingly, we have, the way our town is planned, we have 1/3 farmland preserved, and that is actually our claim to fame. We have the most preserved farmland in Middlesex County, and 1/3 residential and 1/3 industrial, or light industrial, I should say. Now that light industrial provides a lot of employment for our township, for our affordable housing unit members in particular. And again, what we do not have is the transportation. And I'm coming from a different perspective here, in the sense that I attended a traffic summit last year, Middlesex County Traffic Summit. And they talked so much about, you know, they were piloting a study called Ride New Jersey, something like that, where they were doing it in New Brunswick to sort of create these affordable, you know, rides just back and forth. So something as simple as a ride from our affordable, ride, something like that. So from our affordable housing units to the industrial section, where we've got the Wayfairs and the Home Depots and the Cardinal Healths, that is so prohibitive the way it is right now. I work also very closely with the refugee community, and so we've been creative. We buy these people electric scooters, we get them, you know, electric bikes. It's not the ideal solution, but it's what we can do right now. And I had imagined in my mind, with a pilot study such as this ride in New Brunswick, how could that maybe translate into our community? Maybe it's not all on NJ Transit. Is there something else that we could do?
There's a similar model with Cross County Connection in South Jersey. Pure Land is one of the largest industrial complexes in the state. They're just building millions and millions and millions of warehousing. And there's a bunch of residents in Gloucester County, Salem County that work there. They've been working with the employers, Cross County Connection and others to devise a transportation system specific to their employees. I don't know as much about it, but I know that regional transportation planning organization or management organization, I don't know what the one in Middlesex County, I'm looking at.
Keep Middlesex moving.
Yeah, maybe they can help you provide some strategies to assist with the movement of people to their employment. Because I know that those issues are now popping up everywhere as industrial centers are growing.
KMN actually did one from Market Fair or Marketplace, whatever that thing is on 130, to work with Amazon to get a shuttle from, because there is a New Jersey Transit spot, so people could at least get to Market Fair, and then from Market Fair to all that warehousing over wherever the heck it is, from there. So they have the experience and have done it, so I would talk to Keep Middlesex Moving.
Yeah, and Isles does a very similar thing in Trenton with electric shuttles. So you may want to reach out to them just to kind of talk to them about what their business model looks like. I think right now they have a grant, but like without the grant, I think it's like $1 a ride or something. It's extremely cheap. But with the grant, it's free. So you might want to reach out. It's Isles and they work out of Trenton.
I can put you in touch.
And you should talk to the person sitting right behind you as well, who is from Middlesex County and helped create Ride New Brunswick. So, all right. And that note, it's noon, and so I want to be respectful of everybody's times. Oh,
let Megan come up.
Oh, Megan, yes, please. So thank you to all of our panelists today. So a round of applause. Really great dynamic discussion. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful to hear everything, and we're going to see how round 4 plays out. Let's keep an eye on things. And Megan.
Maggie, you mentioning March 3rd? Are you mentioning March 3rd?
She is now.
Now it's in a talking voice.
So, beyond getting people indicted, I am the director of transit-friendly planning. And I apologize for my flippant remark. You don't need to come to the table with $10 million, but I think it really, it just comes from, it would help, but it comes from collaborating. Who knows? But yeah, no, I look forward to working with you and Mike Friscardi on that. But just in case any of you don't know, because I know there are some new faces in the crowd, we at New Jersey Transit, Michael Swan and I, are part of the transit-friendly planning program, and we work with communities like yours to work on transit-oriented development in your stations, working on redevelopment plans, updating zoning, making better connections to existing transit or future transit in your communities. So please reach out to us. Our website is chock full of information, resources, past projects. Currently, we just completed the gentle density and missing middle housing in New Jersey, which I think is a really great complement, companion piece to this discussion that we had today, because it's not all about these skyscrapers that need to be built at transit facilities. It's about creating homes for everyone and capturing that missing middle piece through, cottage core, 4-plex, 6-plex. So this guide is for, it actually stemmed for our Route 9 project in Old Bridge. So we have one that is focused just on that 21-mile stretch along Route 9, and then this guide is for all of New Jersey to just take a look at what your town can do in terms of zoning, and it shows what types of housing might be appropriate based on the context of your community, the place type you're in, as well as implementation tools. So I really think you should check that out. If you haven't, it's on our website at www.newjerseytransit.com/transit friendly. And then on March 3rd, with NJTPA, we'll be doing a virtual workshop through the Long Range Transportation Plan outreach. And it'll be talking about all things transit. We're going to be linking up with, I will be on the panel, and Veronica Murphy, I believe, from Local Aid will be on the panel talking about all of the awesome resources and funding opportunities they have, as well as
The Route 9, that she was talking, so if you want to learn more about that Route 9
See,
TOD
Courtney,
project.
it's just there's too many panels. Like that APA session does the blast, you know, those emails. It's just in my head of all these sessions. Yeah, sorry. So March 3rd, virtual panel. We're going to be talking about our work along Route 9 that we worked closely with Vina, the planner there in Old Bridge, and talking about making better connections to the robust bus service along Route 9. And what the future vision around Old Bridge Park and Ride might look like. So please join us there, as well as any other panel we get approved for. So thank you. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our panel.